Hello everyone, this is Nitpicking Nerd, and this is my review of episode 9 of season 4 of Lower Decks, called The Inner Fight. And this episode was a little bit all over the place. It had multiple storylines that did kind of connect toward the end, but it all felt a little bit rushed and confusing. And finally, the main mystery of the season starts to get unraveled in the end of the episode, even though it's not yet fully explained. I will share my theories in the end of this review. And the episode begins with our team visiting some kind of Federation science outpost on an alien planet, which is protected by a force field fence, and there are some kind of vicious creatures. And the scientists are so reliant on their high-tech security fence that they're not worried by that, but the creatures turned out to be not as stupid as they think, and they managed to sabotage that fence and then swarm the outpost to try to kill all of them. So this reminded me of Jurassic Park as well as the xenomorphs from the Alien movies, because these aliens have acid blood and they kill you in horrible ways, they mutilate you, and Mariner leaps into action to save the outpost and to restore the force field and saves the day basically. And the main scientist does get eaten alive by these creatures, and some people in the Federation might look at this and say it's the fault of the scientists. They came to this alien planet which is not theirs, they settled there, and so these creatures had every right to do it to them because it's their planet and so on. And even if I agree with that, I would still say that they are still evil, vicious creatures that you shouldn't really shed your tears over, because we see how they kill their prey. They're not just, eating it for food, and they are not protecting themselves, because the outpost was not attacking these creatures. The outpost was simply putting the fence up to protect itself from them, and it was on a really tiny piece of land, and so they were not a threat to anyone. They were just protecting itself, and these aliens are the aggressors. They are the ones who attacked the fence to try to kill all these scientists in this outpost. And so I personally wouldn't shed any tears if they just killed a bunch of these creatures, especially since we saw how they eat other animals on this planet in a vicious way. And so it's not exactly as if there are some innocent, cute creatures that just live there and Starfleet came in and started killing them. And so this is not the situation. And also we don't really know the full history. And maybe these vicious aliens were dropped in from some other planet. We don't really know. We don't know the full picture. And so you shouldn't really judge the situation just by watching this one scene. But we do know one thing for a fact, is that these creatures are vicious monsters, since we see what they did to their victims. They don't just kill them, they torture them, they mutilate them, and so that's why I do not really feel any pity for these monsters. Even if it is all taking place on their own territory, it still doesn't excuse attacking the human scientists without any real provocation, except of them being there and trying to do some science there. So that's just my personal opinion on this situation, and I'm talking specifically about this Star Trek episode and nothing else. So anyway, after the credits, we see a briefing on the Cerritos, and the captain says that Starfleet gave them a list of Federation civilians that need to be located and escorted back to Earth. And it's somehow related to the recent attacks by that small ship, and so it's not really properly explained in this scene. Why is Starfleet looking for these specific civilians? Do they think they are somehow connected with the attacks? They don't really properly explain it. And the list includes 7 of 9, which we know around this time is not allowed into Starfleet, and so she went off on some rogue missions of her own, and also Beverly Crusher, who also left Starfleet to go on some rogue mission, and also Thomas Riker, which I guess it's nice to finally learn that he is still alive, because the last time we saw him, he was given a life sentence in a Cardassian prison and was never heard from since, and so it's nice to know that he's still alive somewhere. And the final one on the list is Nick Locarno. That was the guy from the TNG episode, and he has a remarkable similarity to Tom Paris from Voyager, which was not even once addressed in this whole episode. I'm suspecting they'll somehow explain it in the next one, and I'll share my theory in the end of this video. And the captain is aware that Mariner is behaving recklessly recently, that she's taking unnecessary risks, such as confronting and fighting those monsters in the beginning of the episode, sacrificing herself to save the others, and so on. She's constantly doing that kind of stunts. And so the captain deliberately sends her away with her team to fix some remote antenna so that she will not interfere in their mission to find Locarno. And also, as we later find out, she personally knew Locarno, and so maybe that's why the captain also wanted her out of the way. And so they send them away to fix some subspace antenna in orbit of some planet, where they are attacked by a Klingon bird of prey and have to beam down to the surface. Meanwhile, the Cerritos goes to a planet called New Axton, which apparently has a force field protecting the entire planet with a small gate that can open that force field. There's a lot of stuff in this episode that kind of reminds me of Star Wars. They go to some alien bars on the planet with a bunch of different aliens, and there's alien mercenaries all over the place. And even on the other planet where Mariner and the others crashed, there's like a little outpost with an antenna dish, and everything looks suspiciously similar to Star Wars, and so I think it's not a coincidence. So the Cerritos is asking permission to go down to that planet where they think Locarno is, I guess. They did say that he became a pilot for hire after he was kicked out of the academy, so it's like a Han Solo type. And also everything is kind of similar to the Imperial style from Star Wars as well, so they don't like Starfleet, and so they force the ship to go park on some distant moon and then take a space shuttle from there down to the planet. They don't allow them to stay in orbit, while they do allow all kinds of mercenaries and bounty hunters to go to the planet freely. And meanwhile, on the other planet, Mariner is once again the aggressive one. She is the one who wants to jump first without looking and all of that. She leads the charge. And they see there's a bunch of different aliens on this planet, all fighting each other. And these are the same aliens that we've seen being attacked by that little ship all over this season. And apparently that ship did not kill them, but actually kidnapped them and put them all on this planet for some reason. And a Klingon fell into a trap, and a Romulan was going to kill him, and then Mariner jumps to save him. And we also see the Klingon has purple blood, which I think we saw before in this show as well, and it's all in reference to Star Trek 6, in which we saw that Klingons apparently have that kind of blood sometimes. Other times they do not. I guess it depends on the blood type of the Klingons, or maybe the blood looks different in different environments depending on different kinds of light or whatever. So we don't yet have any official explanation, but some Klingons have purple blood sometimes apparently. And on the other planet, the captain and her team arrives by a space bus, and they try to get into this mercenaries bar for information, but the guard doesn't let them in because he doesn't like Starfleet. And at first I was a little bit annoyed by all of this, because I thought, why don't they just wear something else so that people wouldn't know they're Starfleet and there wouldn't be trouble. But later on we find out it was all deliberate, because there's this other bounty hunter that keeps following them around, and he does get in and he does get the information all the time and all of that, and they keep apparently being annoyed by that. But later on we find out that was actually the chief engineer Billups, who is in disguise pretending to be a bounty hunter. And so it turned out to be all a deliberate ruse that they deliberately go around as Starfleet officers so that people who hate them will allow that other bounty hunter to get the same information they wanted, simply to piss them off. And so that was kind of a clever twist. And back on the other planet, they fight some Cardassians. Eventually they go up to some giant tree to sleep there in the night, but Mariner sneaks out by herself because she wants to continue fighting the aliens. And we hear Boimler sleep talking, and he says something about Dr. Crusher, please teach me to step dance, something like that. So that was a funny reference. And as Mariner is going through the forest, she encounters that Klingon that we saw earlier, and then they fight each other. But then it starts raining pieces of glass, which stabs the Klingon, which again he has purple blood, and then they have to run away to find some shelter. And then while they're at the cave, Mariner finally spills her guts about her feelings and all of that, which is something that they were kind of setting up this whole season, that something is really bothering her, that she doesn't want to get promoted, she wants to stay an ensign for some reason. And so while talking with this Klingon, we finally learn exactly why. Apparently she was a personal friend of Ensign Sito. And for those who don't remember, she was also on Locarno's team back in the TNG episode when Wesley was in the academy, and Locarno's team wanted to perform some crazy forbidden stunt in space and accidentally caused the death of another cadet, and then tried to cover it all up. And Locarno was kicked out of Starfleet, but Sito was the one who stayed in Starfleet, unlike Wesley and the others. And so Sito was the only one who actually stayed in Starfleet and eventually ended up on the Enterprise D because Picard requested her to make sure she gets fair treatment. And one small continuity issue I have with this is that in the scene when Sito was talking with Captain Picard and telling him about how it was like for her in the academy after that incident, she specifically said that she had no friends and no one to talk with, and she had to partner with her instructor on the flight missions because no one wanted to fly with her after that incident. And so it made it sound as if she had no friends at all until she finished the academy, and yet Mariner here is telling that she was her best personal friend ever and all of that. I guess we can explain it away by saying she met Mariner later on, a long while after that incident, so it was only true at first that she had no friends, and toward the end of the academy, she did meet Mariner and become her friend and her kind of mentor. And so they kind of try to explain Mariner's behavior by saying it's because of what happened with Sito, because Sito was an exemplary officer and she went on a dangerous mission to be a spy in the end of the original Lower Decks episode of TNG, the one when she reappeared, and eventually died in the end of that episode. And so because she was Mariner's best friend, that was a big trauma for her, and because Sito kind of stayed an ensign forever, that's one of the reasons she tries to stay an ensign and not get promoted, just like Sito never ended up getting promoted. So it's not a perfect explanation for her behavior, but at least we finally get an explanation, so it's better than nothing, I guess. And it's also kind of a setup to her knowing Locarno, who also wants her for some reason, so I guess we'll find out later. So anyway, after the therapy session with the Klingon, she hugs him and they become friends. And another funny scene on the other planet when they go into one of those alien bars, we see that TOS Puppet, which we saw in the credits of the end of many TOS episodes, and I think we only actually saw it once in an actual episode, and it was indeed a puppet when some other alien was using it instead of showing himself, and so he used the puppet of some other alien, but it doesn't mean such aliens do not exist in the Star Trek universe. And so they poke fun at that in this scene because the captain suspects that it's not an actual alien talking with them because, he only has the upper part of his body apparently sitting on a table and offers them some information. And so she thinks it's a puppet and then she picks it up, but it turns out to be a small alien with a huge head. And so it's not actually a puppet. So this was a funny reference back to TOS. And so everyone in the bar got angry at Starfleet for assaulting this alien, and Rappaport confirmed it is an actual alien because you can see his internal organs under that robe. And then that other bounty hunter is the one who they give the information to instead of them. And back on the jungle planet, we see all those aliens still fighting each other, and then Mariner manages to convince all of them to collaborate to get out of this place by working together, and then she's beamed out by someone. And apparently the bad alien ship is the one giving orders to the Klingon bird of prey, and it was not properly explained in this episode why are they taking orders from it. Apparently only one Klingon was sent down to the planet, while the other ones agreed to cooperate and work for that bad alien ship. And apparently it was given orders to kill the ones on the planet after Mariner was beamed out, and so the bird of prey is approaching that little outpost that looks like it's from Star Wars and blows it up. And for some reason it had to get really close to it to do it, and meanwhile the aliens we saw are all alive hiding on the mountains near it and then jump down to the bird of prey and then get in and take it over. Then we see the other team found the place that Locarno was hiding, and it's apparently a small hangar with some blueprints that look exactly like that small alien ship. Which, now that I think about it, is kind of similar to the Delta Flyer, so that might be another clue to the connection with Tom Paris, which I'll get to shortly. And it's still a mystery how exactly was he able to build such an advanced ship all by himself. I mean, one person somehow creating a ship that can easily overpower so many other alien ships in the galaxy doesn't really make much sense unless they explain it more properly later on. And we see Mariner waking up on board that ship and meeting Locarno, who wants to take her with him to have some fun or something. So that's the end of the episode, and my theory is that maybe Locarno is actually from the Mirror Universe. Maybe he is Tom Paris from the evil Mirror Universe, which is why he's kind of evil. So that can finally answer this question of why they look exactly the same, except it being just a coincidence. He even has like an evil beard in this scene, and so that might be another clue. And also his ship looks very similar to the agonizer device which the Terran Empire used to discipline its officers. Whenever someone made a mistake, his superior officer would take his agonizer to agonize him, and so his ship is similar to the Delta Flyer which Tom Paris designed, and also similar to the agonizer device, which would make sense if he is from the mirror universe. And maybe he brought in some more advanced tech from that universe which would explain why his ship is so powerful. So I hope there will be some proper explanation, and not just because he's such a genius that he could single-handedly invent a ship that is more powerful than any other ship. And we still don't really know exactly what he wants. Why did he kidnap those aliens and put them on that planet and then order the Klingon bird of prey to attack them? And what exactly does he want from Mariner? I guess he knew her from the academy as well, which would indicate that she knew Sati from the beginning, which again is kind of a continuity issue with the dialogue by Sati to Picard when she said she had no friends after that incident. So if she was the friend of Mariner, that makes her a liar in that scene with Picard, and so that's a small issue I have with all of this. So I guess it's too early to judge, because it all depends on how they explain all of this stuff in the next episode, which will be the final episode of the season. So I hope they explain all of this more properly in a funny way, and I hope my theory will come true, because it will finally explain this mystery of why is Locarno so similar to Tom Paris, even though it creates another continuity issue of how come no one ever noticed that, especially since Tom Paris was apparently in Starfleet Academy around the exact same time. So how come no one ever noticed that both of them look so similar? So it would be a little bit iffy no matter what they do. So I hope they at least make it semi-plausible and make it funny, but in a way that makes sense. You know, this show was always very careful with the continuity, that despite the many comedic jokes and silly stuff, it still stayed within the confines of continuity, meaning it was very respectful, not violating anything and not creating any problems with the other shows. And so I hope they not mess it up as well. So I'm a little bit worried, because this episode felt a little bit all over the place and a little bit too convoluted and not properly explained, but I'm hoping it will all be corrected in the next one. So that's my opinion. Let me know what you think, and we can discuss it in the comments below, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye.